Now that we have spent some time getting familiar with the 2024 Nismo Z, let's do a review. So when the regular Z was first announced, I was quite excited. I wanted to get one because it sounded like it had all the proper sports car ingredients. Rear-wheel drive, available 6-speed manual transmission, a turbocharged V6, a reasonable size and price point. I wanted a blue one. Blue exterior over the blue interior with a 6-speed manual transmission. But then I drove it and was a bit disappointed. It just felt too soft. It didn't have the sports car excitement that I wanted. But inevitably, we would get this, the Nismo version, where they would tweak it, change it, make it a bit more performance-focused, track-capable. They have changed many things on this Nismo version. So we have revised bodywork that is supposed to improve the aerodynamic balance and performance. We have upgraded brakes, better suspension, a stiffer body, and of course, a bit more power. It still has that 3-liter turbocharged V6, the VR30, that's shared with the regular Z, but here it makes 420 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque. That's plus 20 horsepower and plus 34 pound-feet of torque compared to the regular Z. Rear-wheel drive only and 9-speed automatic transmission only. Yeah, you cannot get the 6-speed manual transmission in the Nismo version. We'll talk about that more when we're driving the car. In terms of exterior styling, there are many changes specific to the Nismo that A, make it look more aggressive, but B, are functional, better aerodynamic performance and balance. So we have unique front and rear fascias for this version of the Z. The front grille has been revised. It's less squared off and rectangular. And Nissan also says this is the thinnest grille mesh of any production Nissan ever, which is a very, very specific thing to brag about. We also have those red accents here, which is on the Nismo logo, the O, and then the lower splitter, side skirts around back. That's the accent color for the Nismo version here. And then on the sides, we have these little canards that create a vortex in front of the wheels, again, for better aerodynamic balance. The wheels themselves are 19-inch forged raised wheels, which I think look really cool. And even though they're slightly wider, are lighter than the regular Nissan Z wheels, and they're wrapped in Dunlop tires, Sport Max tires that are much stickier, much more track focused. They're actually the same kind of tire that they put on the GTR. Coming around back, there's also some changes. A more aggressive lower diffuser area. We have a bit of a wing on the trunk, no big fixed wing. I think the rear 3/4 angle of the Nissan Z looks so good. And in Nismo version, just a bit more aggressive. And it is wider too, to accommodate the wider track, the wheels and tires. So you have these little added fender curves there too, to accommodate that. And then we have the paint. This one here is finished in Everest Pearl White Tri-Coat, which is a really, really cool metallic white paint. It's got the blacked out roof. Every paint color available on the Nismo fortunately works with the red accents. Can you imagine if they let you spec that proto spec yellow? It would just look like the McDonald's car with the red accent. So they were smart enough to not allow that. With that, let's hop in the car, take it for a drive. We'll talk about the interior, what it's like to drive, and the value. All right, let's start off by talking about the interior. So the major things are carryover from the regular Z, including the full digital cluster, which I currently have in the sport display mode, which I prefer, but I can change it over to normal to show you guys, which changes it up. We have the tachometer on the left, the speedometer on the right. We have a little Nismo logo there and the menu in the middle, but I prefer the sport view because it pulls the tachometer right into the middle, adds all these red theming accents there. And then we have the 9-inch infotainment screen, which does have wireless Apple CarPlay, which is essentially what I run the entire time in the car. And then there are a couple of Nismo specific touches. The red accent themes continue. So these Recaro seats have the red accent in the middle with the white Nismo lettering there on the headrest. And these Recaro bucket seats are actually pretty aggressive. They would definitely hold you in very nicely on the track. The bolstering is pretty aggressive. And if you're a bit on the bigger side like I am, some parts of it are a little tight, especially around like the thigh hip area here. On a longer trip, I may not be as comfortable, but it would definitely hold me in nicely. They are fully manual adjustable and also no heating and cooling, right? Track focused Recaro bucket seats. I'm a little concerned. It doesn't seem like the seat goes down far enough. I don't know if I'd have enough headroom with a helmet on. I'm pretty close to the ceiling here, which I seem to recall the other seats letting me drop a little bit lower. Other things that are Nismo specific, the steering wheel has been retrimmed in Alcantara and leather with a red accent here at the 12 o'clock position. And we have the paddle shifters here on the steering wheel. They're a decent size, but I think they're plastic. I don't think these are metal paddle shifters. And then we have an anodized red start-stop button and the drive mode button and the transmission selector. I really like these anodized red buttons. They're a really nice touch. They look awesome. I'm gonna actually toggle up a couple drive modes into sport, pull this back, put it into manual. But the other stuff is essentially the same as the Z. So that the big trunk back there is just a 2-seater only, but good amount of storage space. Stuff is also starting to feel a bit dated still. They did what they could. So the screens and some of the refresh is nice, but like the door panel area, the door handle, the window switches, that all seems to be carryover legacy, showing the age of this platform. But enough about the interior. Let's talk about some of the things Nissan did to make this drive, perform, and handle much better. There's actually a pretty substantial list of things that were added to this car. Let's get the first thing out of the way, the transmission. No, you cannot get the manual, which is definitely a little bit disappointing. I'll actually let you step out a little bit. Sport Plus mode, fun. The automatic is good though. So that's the thing. Oh, man, I'm so torn on this. I know every comment that I got when I posted that I had this car for a couple days was like, oh my gosh, why doesn't it come with a manual transmission? And I get it. It makes me sad. Especially for a enthusiast-oriented vehicle, we want to have the option. You can make it where the automatic is way faster, right? That's the quick one. That's what sets the fastest 0 to 60 time, the fastest lap time. But we want to have the option because driving engagement and enjoyment is part of the experience. The argument is, well, this is supposed to be the track one, so it has to be the fastest, and the automatic is the fastest. Well, yeah, but there's also way faster cars on track than this car. So I can see where they're coming from, probably development cost too, but they have the manual available in the regular. Would it have been that hard to add it to this car? Probably not. They did change a lot of things on the auto to make it perform better. So revised clutch packs means faster shift times, plus the actual tuning of the transmission itself. They say up to almost twice as fast on the downshifts, and upshifts are also increased in speed, and the response is actually pretty good. I am in Sport Plus now, 5th gear, paddle down, there's 4th. Oh, okay, literally as I say it, it's gonna be slow, figures, right? But if I'm getting on it, so 4th gear, there we go, that's a bit better. 2nd gear, that heavy downshift, almost a red line. Downshifts. Downshifts on the braking are definitely quicker. Getting a lot of like burbles and pops too from the exhaust. I don't know if that's real though. I wonder if they're amplifying it slightly because I think that's supposed to have the same mechanical exhaust. It does have a Sport Plus mode, which is specific to the Nismo. The regular one doesn't go up to a Sport Plus. And we have the shift lights at the top of the cluster that go in towards the middle. The power increase is mostly thanks to tuning changes. They did improve the cooling, so this has an additional oil cooler for track performance, but they're spinning the turbos a little bit faster, increasing the boost slightly. They're supposed to be mechanically the same turbochargers, but again, just slight tuning changes. And they also said they pulled the independent spark ignition timing strategy from the GTR. Just all these little tweaks and changes to make it perform a bit better. There's also mechanical limited slip differential. I mentioned suspension improvements. They've improved the chassis rigidity a lot too. A lot of additional bracing, suspension bushings, all of that to make this 2.5% more firm in terms of torsional rigidity. Overall, the stiffening does make it feel much more solid. It feels a bit more rigid. The dampers definitely are part of that too. This does not have adaptive dampers, so it just stays in the same firmness across everything. In the real world, I've definitely felt like, I'm gonna flip a U-turn here, it can be a bit firm, especially on some not so great tarmac. But it definitely fixes my complaints that the car felt too soft. I really wish this had adaptive dampers, and I also really wish the regular Z came like this from the factory. I think it would be a lot more exciting. And then we get to the value. This is not cheap. It's a bit of a problem for me because it's quite expensive. So base price is $64,000, $65,000 for Nismo version, which is a substantial increase over the regular Nissan Z. This one as option is $68,000. The regular base Z Sport starts at, I think, $42,000, and then you add $10K to go to the Performance, which is $52,000. So we're talking over $10,000, almost $15,000 of price difference to get to this over the lower tier trim. And that to me seems quite a lot. You do get a lot. Like I mentioned, like all the different ingredients do add up to make this a better car. I wish the regular Z had come like this. That's the thing for me. Like, if from the factory, this new generation of Nissan Z was this car, I would have been like, cool, I'll take one. Although, no manual, so that would have been sad still, because that's what was also drawing me to the car. But then you look at some of the competitors, right? A well option like GR Supra with the 3-liter is going to be in the 60s-ish range too. I don't think that's going to be as track focused as this car. Look at the tires, the cooling, all the different components, the aerodynamic elements to it. This is much more track focused as the Nissan Motorsports version, whereas the GR Supra is still just kind of the all-rounded Supra, which is a BMW, right? They're good on track. I've tracked 2-liter and 3-liter Supras at Road America, and I spent a week with a manual transmission Supra, and I liked it a lot. But it was a bit more of that clinical feel to it. It did everything really well. Didn't excite me a ton. I didn't get in the car and be like, "Ooh, let's take the Supra for a drive," right? It was fine for me. So if I had to pick between the two of them, the Nismo Z or the Supra, I think I'd go for this car because it has more personality. Like the regular Z, despite its flaws, and maybe because of its flaws, it gives it unique personality traits, right? It feels like what you would expect when you think about what's the modern Z going to be like. Well, they had the 370, I've driven that, drove the Nismo 370, well, now they threw the twin-turbo V6. I wonder what that's going to be like, and it's just what it is. It feels the age in certain ways, has enough of the new tech, and it has character. The Supra doesn't feel as authentic to me in that way. It just goes about doing its job well, and it's quick and it's fast, and it may be a bit sharper. I think the steering on the Supra is a bit better. But I never emotionally connected with the Supra. It never got me super excited. Pun sort of intended. Objectively speaking, I think money for money, a Supra would be better all around if you're daily driving it. But if you do want to go to a couple track days, maybe autocross, I would go for the Nismo Z. I would definitely take the Supra over the regular Z. I'm just not a huge fan of the regular Nissan Z. So for me, the hierarchy in that regard would be regular Nissan Z, Supra, and then the Nismo version here. But this price point still is a challenge because the Mustang Dark Horse. The Mustang Dark Horse with the handling pack is same price as this, right? That starts at $60,000 for the Dark Horse, which has a naturally aspirated V8, is plenty track capable, faster, more power. It's hard to argue against that. Even the Camaro SS1LE, that is a also great platform, great handling car, has a V8. Yeah, it's dying, right? It's ending, but it still exists. And that illustrates the price point challenge I have, that this car is almost $70,000. It's no longer kind of the more reasonable, attainable little sports car anymore, and not having a manual transmission. If it still had the manual and all the different track goodies and the tires and upgraded brakes and the cool wheels and everything, I'm maybe a little bit more on board, but that element holds me back a little bit. So it's with mixed feelings that I'm driving this car. Mixed feelings. It was a little sticker shock when I saw the price. I'm like, ooh, 68 grand. I know everything in the world is getting more expensive now. Minivans are $60,000, right? Everything, because of the way the market has shifted, inflation and whatever, prices have just absolutely skyrocketed. But the price delta from the regular Z also is a little bit crazy. Because if you think about a base one is $42,000 to get to almost $70,000. That's a pretty big change for not a night and day difference. Like a counter argument would be like, whoa, Eddie, your Corvette Z06 is twice the price of a base C8 Stingray, right? Yeah, but the Z06 is a completely different powertrain, different body, way more capable. That difference is like it feels unlike anything. It doesn't even remotely feel related to the C8 Stingray when you're driving it on the road and on the track, right? This similar ingredients, just improved and better. Man, if the regular Z just came like this, I probably would have bought one. I do like the way this car looks a lot, too. One thing I forgot to mention, it is heavier. It's about 100 pounds heavier than the regular Z, which we can blame the stiffening and various components there. So this is by no means a lightweight track special. So, final thoughts. I'm a little bit torn. If you're to throw $70,000 at me right now and like buy a new sports car, I think I would end up with a Mustang Dark Horse. I don't think I'd go for the BMW M2. I wouldn't go for the Supra. Yeah, I'd probably get a Dark Horse, or I'd go buy a Shelby GT350R. But that's a bit of what I'm partial towards. I'm happy Nissan made this car. I would love to track this car or take it on some nice canyon drives. I don't have that ability right now, so I just found the best curvy roads I could and a roundabout. And again, I said it probably like half a dozen times, I just wish this was the starting off point for this generation of Nissan Z. You know, sometimes automakers, they take the previous generation top most performance focused version, and that's kind of their standard where they have the baseline for the next gen one. If they had done that, I probably would have a Nissan Z in my life, because I like the way this car looks, I like the ingredients, and I did like the price point until the price of this came out to almost 70 grand, which is definitely a lot. So I'm going to spend the rest of this week driving this car, seeing if my opinion continues to evolve and change.